Oxford right now is the epicenter of all things college football. And even if you're not an Ole Miss fan or an LSU fan or a UF fan, I think this is really intriguing. I think whatever happens here with Lane Kiffin is we're on the precipice of potentially the new era of college football. And I mean that if Lane Kiffin stays at Ole Miss. If Lane Kiffin goes somewhere else, it's kind of business as usual. But we're seeing this at Ole Miss. We're seeing this at Texas Tech. Dan Lanning planting his flag at Oregon. I mean, for Oregon was a turnstile. Willie Taggart, Mario Cristobal. But now Oregon is considered one of these top-tier programs that coaches don't leave. And in this NIL era, you wonder what's going to happen at Ole Miss. So let's bring in OM Spirit, Ben Garrett. Ben has God is good. Ben Garrett's here.
All the time, Josh. Wait a second. Hold on. Ole Miss is off today. They didn't play football. Wait, everybody just kind of kicked back and relaxed in Rebel Land, right? Right?
Well, right. But you had an emergency live last night. First of all, I love watching your lives.
It's awesome.
You talk to the Ole Miss fan unlike anybody else in the industry. I tune in like yesterday when that news broke. I was going back between your live and Andy Staples live, like one after another. And you guys have just been full throttle with this stuff. And, we're getting almost hourly updates on the Lane Kiffin situation. And if you could, in like 30 to 45 seconds, can you catch the outsiders up to where we are Saturday, November 22nd at 5 p.m. Central? Where do things stand?
Lane Kiffin could have Ole Miss today, LSU today, Florida today. I think the general consensus is that Florida's kind of faded a little bit in this, but there's no doubt that Lane Kiffin is a wanted man, and at every opportunity to kind of quiet any and all potential noise or to shoot down reports like information gathering trips from his family to Baton Rouge and Gainesville, Lane has taken every opportunity to not do so. He's intentionally kept his options open. So what we do know is there was a meeting with Keith Carter, Ole Miss Athletics Director, on Friday. I'd been telling the people at the Ole Miss Spirit, OleMissSpirit.com, to on 3, sign up today for just $1. I've been telling the people I didn't expect actually much clarity from this quote meeting, but we did get some because there was some legitimate doubt as to whether or not Lane Kiffin was going to coach the Egg Bowl. He is going to coach the Egg Bowl. And I think initially, and on the live I did, the way the phrasing at the end of this statement of there will be an announcement expected on the future of Lane Kiffin the Saturday following the Egg Bowl. I think that verbiage, that wording really, for a lot of people, raised up the alarm bells. And you started to see, of course, reports of the offers from LSU, some from Florida. Where are we right now? The same place that we've been for 2 weeks. Lane Kiffin could stay or he could go. And both are very realistic options. And y'all have to remember here, y'all, a lot of people say, well, it's a cop-out. He's already guaranteed the deal with LSU. He's already guaranteed. I've had Ole Miss people say, dude, he's not going anywhere still, even after yesterday. You're dealing with Lane Kiffin here. This is a character unlike any other in the history of college football. He's an unreliable narrator, and I have no doubt that he's had substantive down the road conversations with all of these schools, and now he could change with the wind. If you made me guess, he's probably leaning LSU. But honestly, he was as late as Thursday telling Ole Miss staff and staff meetings how he was feeling this incredible pull to stay at Ole Miss and how they were going to be building this dynasty together here, like what they built here. And then the next day he's all mad and wanting to go to LSU. So any of those things could happen, Josh. Any of them could happen. All we know is that he's going to coach the Egg Bowl. Unfortunately, that's really the only move I think Keith Carter had to make because they had no legal recourse to not let him coach the Egg Bowl. But now, even when you're trying to put all the focus on the Egg Bowl and the preparations for that, while also covering your own basis for the business of Ole Miss football, this is still going to be the Lane Kiffin show this week. I'm very long-winded. You know this from watching my lives. I try to go 30, 45 seconds. I feel like I've so terribly went way over there. Sorry, buddy.
No, it's great. It because it's very convoluted, and like I
It is.
said, the closer you are to it, the more important it is to you. But I also think that this is, if you're a fan of college football in general, if this should be intriguing to you.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Because you wrote a great column, and one of the things in there that you wrote is the real question is, what does he actually want? And I think that that kind of speaks to the bigger issue, or not issue, but what's happening right now in college football. And a lot of people are wondering with this, with NIL and everything that's going on, are Texas Tech and are Ole Miss places that coaches can really sit down and have a career at, or are they more of a stepping stone? And I think that's why there's so much intrigue, not just from Ole Miss fans, not just LSU and Gator fans, but really from around the country. So, what does he really want? What does
mm.
Lane Kiffin actually want out of this?
Yeah, and that's the question, right? Because the flip side of that, from the Ole Miss side, where they're saying, "Well, he's staying, just trust the process, this, and this." It doesn't make any sense to me to delay an announcement that he's staying 8 more days, and after the Egg Bowl, knowing what the distractions are going to be. But also in the same on the same side of that coin, Lane Kiffin has been consistent and
Yeah.
stubbornly consistent that he doesn't talk about this stuff in season, and he's holding to that. The problem with that, and I think where the issue and the disconnect comes from,
Mm-hmm.
is sending family members on information gathering missions to Baton Rouge and Gainesville is brazen. Josh, is truly brazen, and it just speaks to the unprecedented nature in general of this
Mm-hmm.
situation. It's never happened before in college football, and no one really envisioned it could happen too. You know that like a playoff team could potentially, just because it was winning too much, could potentially lose its coach, but Ole Miss is willing to match anything. Like that is well understood. That has been relayed to Jimmy Sexton and Lane Kiffin, all those that consider themselves influencing voices in his ear. They will match the average annual salary. They will, of course, guarantee you as much as they can in NIL coffers. But Ole Miss is better at
Mm-hmm.
spending its money than other schools have been. The question is, what do you want? And I think that you're starting to see, I think that's really what's been at the forefront for Lane in his decision making process as well. Because just like the allure and the temptress that is going to the quote blue blood program, going to the LSUs, going to the Florida, it's never gone away for him. But if you look at the landscape of college football, does it even matter anymore? At Ole Miss, you've won 10 games or more in 4 of the last 5 years. You're barreling towards the playoff. The whole point of the entire exercise, I thought we all agreed, was to get to this place that you're in now. So if the
Right.
money's the same, if yes, the resources, Ole Miss is never going to have the amount of resources as Florida and LSU, but Ole Miss is better at what it does than Florida and LSU is right now, operationally, both with the Growth Collective and their NIL apparatus and how they spend their money. Think of them a lot like, if you want to compare the SEC to the AFC, or not the AFC, but the AL East, and LSU is the Yankees. Well, Ole Miss is the Tampa Bay Rays, and who has been closer to a championship more recently than the Rays? You know, like they're right there in that contention status as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what he wants, and it is quite literally like catching the wind when you're dealing with Lane Kiffin and trying to speak Lane Kiffinese. It is really hard to figure out what he wants to do, because I don't think even he knows what he wants to do. So what do we really know, Josh? That he's coaching the Egg Bowl, and that I blew that away, or blew that off when I heard that on last Sunday. I said, "There's just no way." And then everything came to a head, and you started to go, "Oh, there was real consideration to that." That is the answer to that. And now, at the very least, it's bought everybody a little bit more time. Lane to continue his consideration process. I think he's very much open for business and considering leaving,
Yeah.
but it allows Ole Miss to go about the business of Ole Miss too, and that is continuing to go down the road with the potential replacement, who I think far and away would be the leading guy, John Summerall.
All right. Last thing I want to ask you on this topic, because it's not going away. We're going to keep
No,
covering it. But
no.
how should Ole Miss fans feel?
Mm.
How should Ole Miss recruits feel?
It's a legitimate question. I think the recruiting piece is a lot easier because Pete Golding, independent of Lane Kiffin, is going to be at Ole Miss next year.
Mm-hmm.
Independent of whether or not he were to get the job, should he leave and become the interim, I think him or Joe Judge would be those candidates, and Pete very well could get it. And I know he wants the job, but he has a unique situation unto Ole Miss, like completely independent of Lane. Has already told him twice he's not going with him anywhere. He's here at Ole Miss for myriad reasons, and they're quite unique and personal to him. And of all the coaches on campus, he's far and away the most likely coach to still be here next year, right? I think he would be at the very top of that. And he is the one spearheading the effort for the retention of the 2026 class and building out the strategy or continuing to push forward with the strategy for the portal and stuff. Lane Kiffin, this is the hard truth. Lane Kiffin has never been much of a recruiter, never will be. Like his
Yeah.
recruiting, like what makes him a good recruiter is when they bring him in on the official visit or bring in the players to the official visit for their Lane Kiffin meeting.
Right.
Outside of that, it's very small.
It kind of
Right?
just comes together in the end for Lane
Yeah.
Kiffin
Yes.
in as long as he has a great season, it works out fine. And then you hit
Fine.
the transfer portal, you got a lot of momentum there. That's kind of been his formula. So yeah, but I guess what I'm asking is, are recruits asking
Yeah.
questions, or does their NIL deals, or the prospect of NIL deals, depending on what state they're from, is that locking them in?
That's
And we haven't seen many decommits, if any, to this point.
mhm.
So is recruiting pretty stable right now?
Yes, because for everyone else, the people that actually do the work, the assistant coaches, it's business as usual.
Yeah.
And I for a lot of them, they're going to be here regardless. So most of these kids don't have an agreement or a potential agreement with Lane Kiffin. Their agreement is with the Grove Collective and the University of Mississippi,
Mhm.
including rev share stuff that they've already agreed to in high school. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement. I mean, of course, recruits hear about it, but I just don't think. I think that piece is because of the culture now is much more mitigated than the fan piece, which is, of course, Ole Miss fans are frustrated. Of
Yeah.
course, they're angry. Of course, they're tired of this. Of course, all. But I will say to them,
They're
uh,
winning.
winning. This is the best problem Ole Miss could have. Ole Miss is winning at an
Yeah.
unprecedented clip. Everybody wants its head coach, and if the worst outcome for you in this entire saga is that you have to promote internally for the playoffs, maybe still win a title, and then trade Lane Kiffin for John Summerall at the end of it. That's about as good a place as Ole Miss has ever been as far as going out and hiring a new head coach.
Yeah.
So if Lane were to stay, which is still very much, I'm more like in the moment yesterday, I'm like, man, there was something off about that. That old statement, everything about it just didn't make any sense.
Mhm.
But today, in talking to more people, it is every bit up in the air as it was on Friday. I just think that Keith and Lane knew they had to say something because the current situation was untenable.
Yeah.
And either one way or the other, he could stay, he could go. But Ole Miss fans, if he were to stay, they would all fall back in line, Josh. I mean, that's the way it is because at the end of all things, uh, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss has been the perfect marriage. That's why he is so tempted and feels the pull to stay. And that's why Ole Miss fans are responding and are so angry, so viscerally angry that he just won't commit, that he won't do the Dan Lanning and come out and say, hey, guys, I'm here. Like even Brent Key, who's talking to Florida very regularly, would be on the hot board for Ole Miss. Cut me open. You'll see the colors I
Yep.
bleed. He's just saying nothing. Instead, taking the shot at the Citadel crowd. When then today you look at it around college football, the pathetic crowds at Georgia and Alabama, wherever it is, they're tired of not getting the credit where they feel the credit is due, and that
Yeah.
is Ole Miss has given a crap and really taken a step as a program with it, mostly because of Lane Kiffin, but also like they've moved beyond just a cult of personality now with their organizational structure that is better than most that many have tried to duplicate, and haven't been able to.
I know. What a crazy time to be an Oxford. But
Insane.
it is a problem, but
Mm,
like you said, it's the best possible problem Ole Miss fans could have right now. So
that's right.
we're going to keep covering this thing. We'll see if there's any recruiting impact to it. Right now, like you said, everything kind of solid. So
Yep.
everybody, including Ole Miss fans, including Ole Miss recruits, everybody waiting on this announcement from Lane Kiffin. And right now, just 7 days out and things turn on a dime. But right now, if I read it right, you are leaning toward Lane Kiffin leaving and leaving towards the Bayou, which is a little surprising because I feel like when Brian Kelly was fired, there was a kind of a period maybe of shock. There wasn't much talk. I mean, well, the governor was doing a lot of talking, but there wasn't much talk about Lane Kiffin. I feel like the Lane Kiffin heat started like 10 days ago when it felt like it was Ole Miss or UF, and now it feels like it's LSU.
I'll tell you completely honestly, I don't know. I have no real conviction one way or the other. After yesterday and everybody I talked to, including big movers and shakers at Ole Miss that have a real impact on this stuff, pay real money to have this kind of winning product on the field. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. He's gone. But today, those same people are like, well, he just doesn't know what he wants to do. He's bought a week, blah, 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 blah. I would say Lane leaving, even though, and would call LSU in that scenario probably the one I would pick if you forced me to guess. But the bottom line is this is Lane Kiffin. This is like catching the wind. I don't think even he knows what he wants to do. But now he's got another week, even though he's going to have to answer questions about it. He has a week to really figure that out and actually just coach ball and focus on the one thing that really matters around here, which is getting this Ole Miss football team, which is 10-1, 10-1 historically, 10-1, 6-1 in the SEC, to beat its in-state rival who could absolutely beat them and get to the playoff. Because if he loses the Egg Bowl, like, it makes the Egg Bowl the most consequential game in modern, if not modern, certainly in modern history, but if not in Ole Miss history, period, point blank, period. Because if he loses it, all of this stuff comes to a head in a much different way. So in that way, now it starts to crystallize why they made the announcement as they did. I don't think anything's been decided. I don't think he knows what he wants to do. I think that Ole Miss knows that it has to really get its ducks in a row now for potential replacements, because it's just as much a possibility that he leaves for LSU or Florida than he stays at Ole Miss. But I am done trying to predict or trying to catch the wind that is Lane Kiffin. Yeah. It's impossible, because today he could be thinking or feeling like he did on Thursday, telling his staff, I just want to stay here. And then tomorrow go, yeah, but Death Valley, you know what I mean? Or, oh, chomp them. I've always wanted to be the next Steve Spurrier. I mean, all of that is perfectly plausible, perfectly reasonable, and like easy to argue that side of. I think all this has done is made the Egg Bowl the most consequential game that Ole Miss has ever had. And Lane Kiffin understands the directive here. Hey, all this other stuff you want to keep, requesting an open marriage when we're ready to change the locks, fine and dandy. Win the Egg Bowl, and then we'll really reassess. And right now, I would say, like, with the way everything is set up, because it just doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't just announce he was staying if he was staying and leave and eliminate this for 8 days. Instead, you've left it open-ended. So that tells me it is still very much open-ended. But anyone pretending like LSU's offering $90 million, Ole Miss isn't, there's nothing Ole Miss hasn't offered or guaranteed to Lane Kiffin. It's just a matter of, what do you really want? And I don't think he even knows right now, because the way college football is now in 2025 and the calendar and how teams like Ole Miss, Texas Tech, like you mentioned, you don't have to go to the blue blood anymore. Pat McAfee said it on game day, man. Enjoy. It's okay to be happy. But how does the person who really has never known regular or consistent year-to-year happiness and contentment, have you really, like, have you learned it here? Is that something? And I think that's something he's really battling with. And, you're hearing Pete Thamel talk about, I'm not the only one that said LSU. Pete Thamel's on ESPN talking about it. It's a LSU Ole Miss battle. Right. I think it's a Lane Kiffin battle. I think he feels perfectly valid to go any of those places. He's going to make $13.5 million next year, more than Kirby Smart, and he still hasn't won anything. Right? I mean, that's the craziest part.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part of this. But like recruiting, Ole Miss is continuing to push forward. Pete Golding's got that train humming. They got the coaches out on the road. I mean, they're all out on the road right now recruiting.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's a bye week.
Business as usual. Exactly. It's business as usual now. And he sent them out. He said, hey, go recruit. Like, it's normal.
Do your job.
Yeah. Like, if he was going to LSU, I just find it really hard to believe. So what I'm saying is nothing's been decided.
Yeah.
This week, we're not going to learn anything. It's all about win the Egg Bowl, because I don't think anybody wants to see this situation, be it Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, anybody wants to see what the situation would look like coming off a loss to Mississippi State. Right. That would be the true nightmare and tragedy.
Yeah, leave a bad taste in your mouth. All right. Well, Ben Garrett, you guys are doing a heck of a job at OM Spirit. Appreciate you dropping by. It's going to be a heck of a week, man. A heck of a week.
It's going to be nuts. And Josh Newberg is awesome. I've read him for a long time now. I'm a coworker with him at the best sports media place in the world. You're awesome. Keep doing your thing, rocking and rolling. And Steve, Mr. Will Fong Baum, I hope you're having Daddy Day, and come log back in for this week of Lane Kiffin, the Lane Kiffin saga, the latest edition of Keeping Up with the Kifdashians, man. Come back in. We need you.
The Kifdashians. All right, Ben Garrett, thank you. OM Spirit. There it is. What do you guys think? Where's Lane Kiffin going to go? Just hearing out Ben. doesn't sound like he's going to be at Oxford next year. That's coming from an insider. I mean, that's just his gut. And I agree with him. I think Lane kind of wakes up on different sides of the bed every day, and who knows what's going to happen. I mean, half of me thinks that maybe we will know something before the Egg Bowl. Ben doesn't think so, but just the way that these reports have been flying out almost left and right, I don't know. Just feels like something could shake out. But the plan is next Saturday, Lane Kiffin will announce. You guys tell me in the chat, where do you think Lane Kiffin is going to go?